Hey all, welcome to Share Trek. This is Raj here. A big thanks to the Patreons and members who have been supporting the channel for HIV content. I can't thank you enough. Today I want to talk to you about a very, very inspiring story, and it comes from Amsterdam. And many of you who are regularly reading literature on HIV/AIDS, you would have already seen this because it appeared in December. But the reason why I want to put it across is because of a few factors. The first thing is that it's a new year and people need inspiration, and this is a very inspirational story. That's point number one. Point number two, there are so many therapies, and I have covered them all over the last so many years. Of course, not all of them are in Patreon, but I'm going to start a revision series where I'm going to take updates of all those therapies that I have already covered and make an additional video for this year. With any updates that I may find. So that way all our Patreons will get the videos that was never published in Patreon even before I started the Patreon account. So that will be the plus point. But having said that, data releases on HIV trials don't happen every day, and there aren't too many HIV trials in progress. So it becomes difficult to get information that is directly relevant in terms of a therapy that is imminent or something that's already available. I have covered everything from Gilead, so it's all there in our YouTube channel. But I'll do that again for Patreon and YouTube for the new members who are coming in. So having said that, I thought why not take something very interesting and inspirational, bring it to you. Today's video is about that. Let's get started. Welcome back, friends. The smiling face that you see here belongs to Dr. Godelieve J.D. Bree, and she's the architect of this whole initiative, to the best of my understanding from this article. This article was published in AIDS Map somewhere around 6th of December 2023, and I'll put a link to this in the description so that you can check it out for yourself. Now look at the very first sentence. New cases of HIV infections are close to being eliminated in Amsterdam, having fallen from 201 in 2010 to 9 infections in 2022. Currently, 98% of all people living with HIV have been diagnosed. 95% of those diagnosed are on antiretroviral treatment, and 95% of those on treatment have achieved viral suppression. This is fantastic statistics. If you hear about any city being able to do this, you'll feel so safe out there and very supportive. So the whole story consists of deliberate initiative. There was a lot of political will as well as motivation to get this done. And as Dr. Godelieve says, many factors contributed to the decline in HIV, but the work of the H team is an inspiring part of the picture. And she says that they got all the stakeholders together. And one of the other points that comes out big time in this article is that everything depends on the city. Because a city may be too big and it will be difficult, and it may be too small, so you can't have so many resources that is needed. So it has to be the right size, and they felt that Amsterdam had just the right size. And the project evolved around 2012 and was prompted by the HIV incidence and prevalence figures in Amsterdam. Even though there was a gradual decline from 2000s to 2010, they felt that it was not going down fast enough. So Amsterdam has a history of providing HIV services and working with communities since the early 1980s. So they had a successful harm reduction program in place. They just had to take it to the next level. They started thinking about how to better use the city infrastructure in Amsterdam. That would basically mean that they have to get all the stakeholders together. So there are different stakeholders in the society that could contribute to the solution. This also includes the municipality and the cities. It also includes the hospitals. It includes the hospitality industry and the pharmacist, a whole lot of people who are actual stakeholders in this process. They were all brought together, And they started to design and integrate interventions that they were individually doing. They tried to make it relevant so that it could relate to what others were doing. So for the first time, there was a coordination between all the stakeholders so that each of those stakeholders could re-examine their own interventions and how they were contributing to the fight against HIV and align it nicely with each other so that they were able to be sure that nobody was working at cross purposes and that they were working in synergy with each other and getting the maximum out of their intervention and the maximum out of their resources. So they looked at PrEP provision, testing and treating of acute HIV infection, and also working on strategies to better reach out to people with HIV. And they were saying that almost 60% of all newly acquired HIV was driven by acute infection among MSM. And these data provided them an impetus to design an acute HIV test and treat campaign focusing on MSM. And they also enlisted the help of communication experts and community groups so that they could tailor a proper communication to help people recognize symptoms of acute HIV infection so that they can come and seek help and start getting control over their infection. So they built the campaign, and their rationale was that if people recognize the symptoms of an acute infection, then they can get an immediate referral. And the way they worked it out was that within an hour, an RNA-based test would give the patient a verdict on whether they are positive or negative. And in case they are positive, it was possible for them to get treatment the same day. Initially, they were hesitant about that, but then when they implemented it, they found that people were accepting that thing and people liked it, and that became another important aspect of the entire strategy. And they also adopted algorithms for testing, and this seems to have been an algorithm developed in Kenya for malaria detection, and they adopted that and made some modifications so that they could use the same algorithm for HIV. Now, when I say algorithm, I can understand what an algorithm is, but in this particular case, I don't know what they mean by the algorithm, how it works, but I'm just summarizing what is there in this article out here. Understanding that algorithm will be a separate project for me, and when I do that, I'll come back to you with it. So that's how they worked, and they were able to reach out to most of the people, and that's how they brought down the infection level to around 9. And there is one particular sentence in this entire article where they say that earlier we were trying to look for groups of people, and then they were looking at postal codes and areas and trying to find out which are the areas where people come up very late in the infection progression, and which are the places where they have MSM, acute HIV transmission. So they were trying to map out the entire Amsterdam area into various parts and trying to get information and create a picture so that at a glance they know what strategy to deploy where and which stakeholder would lead what initiatives in which area. So that was their approach, and it all succeeded because at this point of time what they are saying is now we don't have to go by postal code, we have to look at not groups, but we have to look for individuals. So that's a very, very high level of success that they have achieved. And they also want to integrate into this migrants and refugees and other groups which are not static groups but which are dynamic and which have either come in or we are going to be ongoing, being introduced into the community, or which are transient, so that they can make sure that the control that they have in the spread of HIV in Amsterdam is maintained and improved further. So this is absolutely fantastic. And now the best thing about this is that they know where this can work and where this can't work. So this team has got a very good understanding of how to design a campaign and how to get stakeholders together and look at identifying the whole city as data maps, and then deploy the right kind of strategy to handle the right kind of groups. So they are saying that the approach should be different. For instance, they said with colleagues in Paris, they said the approach should be different. It was evident that while both the cities have similar problems, like the need to better reach out to people to provide services, a city like Paris is very different from Amsterdam. So everything is on a much larger scale and people move more fluidly so in Paris. But when it comes to Amsterdam, it's much smaller and people tend to stay in the same place, and that makes it much easier. So there are those kind of peculiarities. So if any government or any city wanted to replicate the success of what happens in Amsterdam, I think the people in this team would be more than happy to guide them into how they can come up with a campaign and how they can control and reduce HIV spread in their city, as well as control the virus loads of all the people who are already infected with HIV. So this is a very, very good story to begin 2024 with. This was published at the end of 2023. So that was a good news story of 2023. And friends, one of the other important things is that nobody wants to deliberately be infected with HIV. It happens because people do not know that they are going to get it. And in order to reduce those kind of infections where people unknowingly end up getting HIV, what needs to be done is to make sure that all the people who are having HIV are detected. In case of Amsterdam, it's almost 95 to 99%. And the second thing that has to happen is that all of them should get antiretroviral and should start bringing their viral load under control to undetectable levels, because then those accidents, when they happen, will not transmit HIV and other people will end up being safe. And also the patient themselves will have better life outcome and better quality of life. So those are the important things. Even in countries like India and other places where ART has been deployed in a good manner, the infection rates have come down. It's not because of behavioral changes. It's because of viral load control due to use of ART, which has made sure that other uninfected people do not accidentally get infected. So this is a very nice development. And friends, for the next video, I'm looking at bringing to you one of the existing therapies that I had covered in 2023 before the Patreon channel was started. I'm thinking I'm going to talk about ASC22 with chidamide. That's in my calendar. So I have a calendar here, which I have made for January and February and March. So I'm looking at the calendar for January, and I've got ASC22 update for this week. And I also have the UCLA HIV CAR-T update from Dr. Scott Kitchen. So I'm going to look at both of these therapies. I've already covered it before. I'm going to look at it again and see if there is anything new. And if something new is there, I'll add that as well. But I'll give a full coverage because it will be like a revision for everybody who has already seen it before, and it will be like introduction to a new therapy for people who have not seen that before. Now both ASC22 and the UCLA initiative, they're all ASC22 is in phase 2 clinical trial and phase 3 clinical trial. It's in China and I think Philippines. And UCLA is, I think it's a university initiative. It could be in a small pilot or it could be a small phase 1 clinical trial. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look it up again. It's been a while. So those are the two things for this, the next 2 videos. And ASC22 is the next video for this week. So friends, with that, I would like to say bye and I'll catch up with you again. See you later.